Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks, Julie, for the introduction. Uh, is it something that is handed over to me to speak?
Uh, yeah, Doc, for
Yeah, cool,
actually to introduce
awesome.
the company. Yeah.
So, a brief introduction of PM Training School, and thanks, Julie, for giving me this opportunity to talk about it. A brief introduction with the help of a slide set, if you allow me. Uh, I believe that most of you guys already know about PM Training School. We are based in New Zealand, particularly in Auckland, and we are a corporate training school, end-to-end partner for the professionals and the corporates to help them get trained, prepared, uh, sit for exam and certify for their professional certifications, especially in project management, business analysis, agile, enterprise architectures, and associated fields. So we were established back in 2015. We are global training providers. We have clients around the globe, in fact, from every country in the world, because our products are as such that not only we serve professional within the country, but everywhere. We are partner with many different accreditation and certification bodies, including PMI, Skilled Agile, PeopleSalt, Scrum, IIBA, Open Group, uh, and also we are exam partnered with a number of bodies, such as we are partnered with Pearson uh, for their exams. If you got a chance to sit for any professional exam, most of the exams are conducted through Pearson or Prometric, and we are partnered with both. So we have a center in south of Auckland, Manukau. If you are joining from Auckland, you know where Manukau is. If you are outside Auckland or outside New Zealand, we are in south of Auckland. We have a beautiful exam center. It is one of the largest in New Zealand. Uh, and we partner with Pearson, Prometric, but also with IDP for IELTS, uh, ETS for TOEFL and GRE, PSI, Criterion, etc. So basically, we provide end-to-end support to our clients so that clients can come and get trained, upskill, prepare for the exam, sit for the exam, and become certified professional in any particular field uh, they work in. Uh, Four key areas where we operate: uh, corporate certifications in project management and associated fields, uh, exam prep programs, and also exam services. That is our South Auckland campus, and PM delivery and PMO consultancy services. Uh, and recently we added corporate event management because we have now expanded quite a lot, and we got the team members who got a lot of expertise in event management. So we thought, why not? Let's help organizations in conducting some great events. And uh, these are the four areas, but my focus in this presentation, in fact, it should be a quick introduction, okay, is on three areas. Corporate trainings that are conducted face-to-face, instructor-led virtual, and from last few years, we started e-learning through our certification learning hub. I will be talking a bit more about it, but if I don't get time, and if you are interested to know more about this cost-effective e-learning subscription-based model, you can reach out to Julie or me, and we can share more details. We have partners within the country and globally, a lot of different partners with whom we work. They are organizations, they are Fortune 500 companies, they are non-profit organizations. They are like from everywhere, but mostly from APAC region. Uh, our strategy is simple. We work closely with our clients through our discovery workshop so that we could understand their needs. Then we provide them the proposal that should be working for them, a customized proposal. And if they like, what we offer, then we partner with them and deliver their needs. And that's all about PM Training School. And thanks for bearing me. Here I would be stopping the sharing of my slides and handing over back to Julie.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Doc Vice. Now, the moment you all have been waiting for, introducing you to our February webinar speaker, Mr. Peter Woolley. Just a brief introduction about himself. So Peter is a delivery lead product owner of Akaata Maori. He started his IT career in the mid-90s as a developer, initially working on a range of IT projects. The most interesting one is the Auckland Prison. It's New Zealand's highest security prison and Y2K. After 2000, inspired by supporting graduates on their career journeys, he moved into leadership roles, becoming a team leader and later a software development manager. In 2010, Peter learned about the Scrum framework and the Agile Manifesto. After years of sitting through long meetings, debating changing requirements, reading large over-engineered design documents, dealing with endless program office template changes, and stop all work gate reviews for late projects, the Agile Manifesto felt like a breath of fresh air. So over the past 9 years, he has focused on Agile practitioner roles. He enjoyed the balance of people and delivery, the joy of success, and he never tires of watching working software. So Peter, thank you for joining us today. The virtual stage is yours.
Excellent. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Faz. And thank you for also saying that I worked in Auckland Prison. I have actually said in a couple of interviews, I've been in Auckland Prison and gone as a contractor. So, yeah, okay. Now, for those who have worked with me know that I can't share a screen without talking out loud about doing it. So I'm going to hit share, make sure I've got the sound on, hit that button. Try not to share my password. Oh, don't say that. Cool stuff from the beginning. If you can't see a screen, holler now. If not, I'm off. And for those of you who saw me at the start, I was just finishing the 4th coffee of the day. So let's jump into it. So welcome this afternoon. A lot of what we'll be talking through today in my presentation, seeing the work and not just the plan, is based on the 31 years that I've been working in software delivery. And over that time, I've worked with quite a number of project managers, project coordinators, and so on. And I find that they tend to focus very much on the plans, the timelines, the Gantt charts, the tasks, but they kind of don't really get under the hood of what's happening in their project, and they don't kind of see what's happening around them. And I believe if they did, and that'll be the topic for today, that would certainly improve the efficiency and timing of your delivery. So firstly, we're going to jump into a section on projects, people, and products, and how I see those sort of 3 elements coming together to form the basis of a system. Then we're going to jump into decision making, and we'll be using the Cynefin framework to guide us through that. Then we're going to talk about teams and different types of working groups. What's a team? What isn't? And last of all, into some actions, some tips and techniques before we wrap up with a summary, and then of course into a bit of Q&A. So let's go and click start the first section, and we'll start with the definition of projects. I'm not going to read out what's on screen because I'm sure that will annoy everyone because you'll be reading it as I'm speaking it about a sentence behind. But there's 3 key parts on this definition I'd just like to focus on. The first one is temporary organization. So a project has a start and an end. It's not until further notice. It's not going to be permanent. We expect it to begin and expect it to end. We also want it to produce an output. So it's not just maintenance, it's not incident, it's not support, it's actually creating something we're going to do something with. And last of all, there's an approval step, a business case. Okay. Now that can be something as simple as going to a daily scrum and the product owner goes, that's a great idea, go do it. Or could be something very elaborate involving preparing some very extensive documentation and so on. But that's a crucial part of the approval. Let's expand on that definition a little bit further and bring in some of the elements around people and products. So in the project focus, we're very much looking to complete our tasks, and we're looking for an efficient resource utilization, and that can be a trap, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. In the people space, we're looking to prioritize the well-being relationships of our people and their professional growth, and they are people, they're not resources. For those of you who have worked with me know I get triggered by the word resources when referring to people. I've got a few triggers. We'll touch on them today. If you keep account and you get it right at the end, there will be a prize. I'm not sure what it is, but we'll work something out. It might be a bit of a count. Okay, let's keep going. And lastly, we're going to go invite you to consider products. So products is in the space that I've been in a lot the last couple of years. This is when we prioritize long-term outcomes. We focus on value, and we're going all the way through till the end of the product life. And what I'm inviting you to consider today is a balance of these three elements. And when we don't have these three elements, we can end up with the following occurring. The first one, here's a good old favorite, technical debt. Now, if you've been in IT for more than 5 minutes, you've heard this term. This is where something is built or isn't built, which is causing you delay and inefficiency, a workaround, an incident. There's probably a few people nodding right now going, oh, I know what that's like. But basically, in a very short definition, it's suboptimal and it impacts upon your product. Related to that is death marches, and this can come about when you've got a very hard deadline or very hard budget, or you've just got to get done, and suddenly you're doing overtime, your weekends and evenings in order to get something done. One can lead to the other. As you start running out of time, you start out of scoping things, and suddenly, boom, you've got technical debt, even though it might not be your intention to create it. Another symptom of a lack of balance can be the A team, B team. And this can be something that's quite well intentioned. You go, right, we're going to take the best people in this team, we're going to ring fence them, another term I don't like, 2 triggers, put them into a project and have them deliver this with the intention of it looking great and having a good result. But what does that do for the team cohesion? How do the B team people become part of the A team if they're cut off from the A team? In fact, how do you have a team when you have ring fence people? We can have a lack of delivery. This can be a case where we're so focused on the people and their well-being and their growth and their feelings and so on that we kind of lose track of the product, the project, the deadlines, and that can have some unfortunate consequences. The last term I'm going to use, I used in a meeting a long time ago, I think about 15 years ago, a bit of an analogy. I call it the Vietnam War outcome, and this is when you win every battle, but you lose the war, which strictly isn't what happened in the Vietnam War, but this isn't a history session. But this can be a case where essentially every project succeeds, you're on time, you're on budget, you've done what you set out to do, but suddenly your product is losing revenue, it's losing its users, and it's suddenly getting bad reviews, and you're sitting there going, but we've done every project perfectly, what's happening there? We've kind of lost that focus on the value of the product. So I'll re-emphasize, looking for that balance across those elements and recognizing that you are actually part of a system. And now you might be sitting there thinking, well, look, Peter, I've got a job description, I've got a contract, I've got an initiation document, a charter, a scope. This is what I need to work to. And now you're saying, go outside of those boundaries and go dabble in teams and go and dabble in people. I'm inviting you to consider those elements as part of understanding the system that you're working in. And when you see these things in the system, which might not be ideal, by all means, feel free to call those out to the people you're working with, your steering committees, your stakeholders, your sponsors, and so on. Because if you don't, you might find that some of the outcomes you get or some of what you're looking to deliver might not come out as you're expecting it to. Okay, hit the click button again. Let's jump into decision making. And straight away, what's the first thing we need to decide in decision making? Oddly enough, the first thing we need to decide in decision making is, are we going to use defined processes or are we going to use empirical processes? Now, defined processes are setting a set of processes and procedures, following them in a sequence and coming to a certain desired outcome. The empirical process over there on the right, this is where you build a feedback loop into what you're doing, and that enables you to decide what's valuable to do next and to get feedback as you go. And in my opinion, the million-dollar question of which one of those two you're going to decide to do is there on the screen. Do I need feedback to know what the next valuable thing is to build? And the key word in there is valuable. Now, there's nothing wrong with defined processes. As human beings, we've built amazing things with defined processes. We've built pyramids, Roman aqueducts, we've built the Bell Rock Lighthouse. We built my house following a defined process, right? The builders didn't build 1/10 of it and said, Peter, can you move in the house and then 2 weeks later give us some feedback and we'll build the next 1/10 of it? No. I've been involved in software delivery and software development quite successfully using defined processes. But what happens if we're not sure what the next valuable thing is to build? What happens if half your stakeholders want option A and the other half want option B? A few years ago, I went to work with a team towards the end of a quarter, and throughout that quarter, they'd been working on a rather large feature. Now, they released that feature, a lot of fanfare, and on the first day, about 90% of all the users picked that feature up and used it. Great. 2 weeks later, that was down to 50% of all the users of the application using the feature, and by a month later, it was barely 10%. At the end of the quarter, it wasn't even 1 or 2%, and yet $500,000 in a whole quarter had been spent on building this particular feature. So let's narrow down a little bit further and become a little bit more specific around our decision making. Now, my go-to framework for decision making is the Cynefin framework. Cynefin is the Welsh word for habitat. And this was developed by Dave Snowden back in 1999. And the key relationship within this is the relationship between cause and effect. And what Snowden has done is he's identified 5 domains, and the key ones there are chaotic, complex, complicated, and simple. Now, simple is now known as clear, and it's also been historically called obvious. So I'm going to jump now to a short video explaining the Cynefin framework a lot better than I could do. Please sing out if the sound or something does not work or you can't see it.
This is a fly-through of Cynefin, a sense-making framework for figuring out what kind of problem space you're in so you can get unstuck. For some challenges, the approach is clear. You figure out what to do and do it, or figure out what's wrong and fix it. For complicated challenges, we can figure out what to do, but it's going to take some time and probably some analysis. For complex challenges, the causes of things are much murkier. Developmental psychologist Paul Bloom says things are the way they are because they got that way. Conventional thinking about problems and solutions don't apply in complex challenges. We have to create a path by walking. In other words, try stuff. But beware, there will be unintended consequences. There are also dangers in assuming everything has an obvious solution. Change is inevitable, and things can fall apart quickly if we keep assuming things are as they used to be. If you fall off the cliff into chaos, you need to restore order as soon as possible. But we can intentionally venture into the shallow end of chaos. In fact, it's a good idea to wade in every once in a while to spaces where we have no idea what we're doing. We just need to assume we will flounder around and make mistakes, so it's a good idea to choose things where failure isn't unsafe. We all have contexts where things seem really obvious and predictable to us, but it's these familiar contexts, roles, and situations where the zone of complacency lies. Whether or not we fall off the cliff depends on how we respond to things that don't fit in with our expectations of how things.
Cool. I'll just stop it there. This goes on for a few more seconds, but within that 2 minutes and 8 seconds, there's actually quite a number of profound statements. The two that really stand out for myself are things are the way they are because they got that way. So in other words, bad decisions happened or good decisions were made. It wasn't just bad luck, it wasn't the spin of the roulette wheel or the fall of the dice. They are the deliberate outcome. The other statement, which is particularly profound, is the one about conventional thinking around problem and solutions do not apply in a complex challenge. So if that's the case, what could we do, or what would we need to do in that situation. Okay, let's, oops. I've just had something that's...
This is a fly-through of Cynefin.
There we go. Okay. Cool. So what does Cynefin answer? Cynefin answers that question on the screen. What kind of system are we in? What kind of decisions do we make? Now, there's that word system again. It came across a few times in that opening talk on the 3 areas. What kind of system? Okay, let's jump into a practical example. That's enough of the theory. Let's go into practice. So I'm going to talk through an example of a project I worked on where we used the framework. This is quite a few years ago. This was an integration project working for a very large organization that had a number of rather critical public-facing applications. And they had built an integration platform, and they had built these 40 different pieces of code in 40 different ways, and they had no alerting and no monitoring. So we only knew something hadn't worked when we got an email or a phone call saying, I need my data yesterday, or I need it on Monday. It's now Thursday. So we started off down in the zone of chaos. We didn't know what was happening. We had to just respond immediately and fix what was happening. We put that alerting and monitoring in, and it allowed us to at least know something was broken before the users did. And that moved us over now into complex. Now we had 40 different pieces of code. We could have approached it from the idea, right, let's write a design, let's create a pattern where we bring them all together and try and fix them, because we knew we had to refactor this. Now, if we'd tried that, we'd still be there probably 15 years later trying to do it. So what we did is we said, right, let's find the path, let's make the path. Let's pick the most valuable piece of code, and we'll refactor that, we'll create a pattern, and we'll put it out into production, and we'll use that. And that's what we did. Great, this is working well now. We went to the second piece of code. Oh, pattern doesn't work, extend it, which we did. Third piece, extend it. And each time we extended or changed the pattern, we applied it back against the pieces we'd done. So there was only ever one source of truth in production. And this is where a really good automated regression suite pays for it in the equivalent of your morning tea break. Okay. And we worked through these one at a time. We also had new projects coming on board, so we were applying the pattern to that. But over time, we began to understand a lot more of the environment we're working in, a lot more of our source systems. We knew, for example, if we went to the Oracle database, we'd be using the deprecated library that they had, so we'd have to replace it. So eventually, we moved out of that complex area more into the complicated one, where the skills and ability of the team would allow us to be able to understand what we were doing. And by the time we got down to the last dozen or so pieces of code, we probably didn't change the pattern at all. And eventually we got to the point, to some degree, where it was almost a checkbox, literally a tick list exercise for us to complete a piece of work. I remember working with a vendor, and we sent them our documentation, we got theirs, we hooked everything up, boom, worked first go, right? Literally worked without any kind of further intervention. Now that little sort of clockwise circle you're seeing on screen took anywhere between 2 and 2.5 years to complete that work. But by the time we got there, we had reduced the number of incidents were happening by about 95%. We had reliable data flow, we had reliable monitoring, we had just the one pattern in production, so any one of the nearly 20 developers could pick up something and fix it. But also, in terms of any new work we came on board, we were pretty much 90 to 95% accurate with our estimates, which you won't hear many IT people talking about in terms of accuracy, because we had moved to the point where we knew and understood the relationship, the domain we're in, and how to work in it. So go now to another example. This is more in the complicated and clear domain. This is some work I did last year while I was working in the supply chain IT side out at Foodies. I think there's at least one person here, so a big shout out to them. And it involved the antivirus installation on some servers and doing some password enforcement on some handheld devices. So what we did is we got everyone together. The experts came together, and we did the first part of that was working in a safe to fail way, which is a very polite way of saying we were doing it in non-production. So we set up the first few servers or devices, we tested them, we assessed them, we made sure there was a way of quickly rolling back if we had any issues, which is generally handed in and we'll give you a new one. And once we had proved that they worked and completed our testing, we literally just wrote a list and started doing them one after the other. Okay. Because if you've done 899 handheld devices, and I think one person did do all 2,000 of them, if you've done 899, they've all got the same firmware, they're all the same model, they're all getting the same package, you know what's going to happen on the 900, the 901, 902. It's just going to work. You put it in its cradle, you hand it back, done. Okay. You could apply it like the complex approach. You could do it like that, but that would be hugely time-consuming, expensive, and unnecessary. And it would probably take you months working with each device like it's unique. So in the end, I think it's took about a week and a half to complete and was quite successful. Okay, so let's now bring these elements together of systems and decision making. And I'm going to share with you what I believe is the number one reason why projects fail. No, this is not LinkedIn clickbait. I'm not trying to sell you something. You can put your credit cards away. I don't accept credit cards. I just accept gift vouchers. Oh, oops. Okay. I've been addicted to a YouTube channel that talks about scamming, and it's brilliant. It's very funny. Anyway, let's have it. Let's have the number one reason why projects fail. They make the wrong decisions as they do not understand the domain they're in. And often they're approaching what they're doing, their work, as if they're in the clear domain, and in fact, they're actually in complex. And what you'll start seeing is surprises. You'll start encountering unknown unknowns. Even the experts will be confused by what's happening. It'll take more time. It'll take longer. You'll get more failures. Suddenly, the time frame is compressing. The money's being spent. And you're starting to get quite nervous because you're still stuck. You don't understand why this is happening because you don't understand the domain you're in, and you don't understand the domain you're in because you've not looked at the wider elements of the system that you're operating in. Okay, now it is my turn for a commercial break. Yep, this is one of two public speaking engagements I've got. The next one is next month down at Agile on the Beach in Lake Taupo, talking about the human side of delivery, building trust, talent, and triumph. So this is a team I've worked with, and in 7 months we got 3 times faster with our flow, 3 times faster with our stories. We were a lot happier, and we drank a lot of coffee, had a lot of fun, and we ate a lot of KFC. And that's just giving away the team I'm talking about to a few people on the call. But if you want to know how we did it and going into some of the elements I'm even touching on today, but in a lot more detail, by all means, join me down in Lake Taupo. But by end of March, you might want to bring a jacket. Okay, let's now jump into what's a team. Now, this section is very heavily based on an article by a Swedish agile coach by the name of Victor Saison. And there's at least one person on this call who knows who I'm talking about that would have shared this article. And what Victor has done, he's identified 4 different working groups based on 2 criteria, as you can see there on the screen. One is a working towards a common goal, and the other one is the need for each other. The obvious one is a team, right? This is where we've all come together, we're working towards a goal, and we need each other. So like a BA, a developer, a QA, we come together, we write some code, we know we want it to achieve, we know we need each other, done, nice and straightforward. But then we can also have what Victor calls pseudo teams. And this is where you do have that common goal, but you don't need each other. And a good example of this would be level 1 service desk support, particularly if it's following the sun. And I'm sitting there somewhere in Europe by myself, triaging calls, putting them in queues. I don't need anyone to do that. I'm just working by myself. On the other side is a temporary alliance. This is where we do need each other. Good examples of this are the knowledge sharing guilds, like a BA or a QA guild, where that peer learning is essential, but we're offering different squads, different products, different projects, all with different goals. And the last one that Victor identified are co-workers. And in the age of the hot desk, these are a group of people all who just happen to be sitting next to each other. This was the company I was in last year was very much like this. The person would sit down, you'd say hi, they'd leave at 3, you'd say bye, that was it. That was your entire kind of interaction with that particular person. There's another element in this that Victor doesn't mention, which I think is quite important, and that is time, and that is how long are we going to be together as a group? Because if it's going to be 10 minutes versus, say, a couple of years, we're going to approach it very differently, right? So if I have someone from the service desk ring me and say, hey, Peter, look, can I just dial in and fix that problem you raised? I'll greet the person and say, hey, how you going? A little bit of small talk. How's your day been? How's the weekend? I'm not going to sit there and say, right, we need a working agreement. We need a charter. We need a definition of done. We need a definition of reading. We need some acceptance criteria. Not for a 10-minute chat. But if I'm sitting down on a Monday morning with a group of people that I'm going to be working with physically or virtually or both for the next 2 years towards a common goal, and we're going to need each other, we're probably going to want to spend some time coming together as a team and understanding each other and what we're looking to do. So what I invite you to do is at the start, put that little graph up there with those 4 different quadrants, share that with your team, your working group. I can't say team now. I've got to keep calling everyone a working group. That's a horrible term, isn't it? But it's accurate. Put it in front of your working group and have a conversation around it. Use some of those good retrospective techniques to discuss it and say, look, do we want to be a team? Do we need to be a team? How do we want to communicate and how do we want to collaborate? When I was working last year in that supply chain space on those 2 projects I just mentioned in the decision-making section, what I do involved the team I was in, plus our security and infrastructure team. And I'd meet with my equivalent person, the wonderful Mike, and I'd share my facilitation canvas with him and say, hey, Mike, this is how I see the kickoff going. He'd say, great, Peter, let's do it. So we'd bring everyone together, we'd have a meeting. I'd start off by introducing myself, saying who I was and so on, and saying why we're here. I'd share the goal with them at the start, saying this is what we're looking to achieve. And then I'd invite everyone to introduce themselves, as well as what their interest was and what they were looking to achieve out of the project. There's also a little bit of psychology in that approach, because the earlier people speak in a meeting, the more often they will speak, particularly when you're having a very critical technical discussion. And this also brings out if anyone's got any, so we say, misalignment in terms of what they're doing, how they're doing it, and so on. And then we'd go into a bit of the detail of the tasks and what we needed to do in the schedule and whether we need to have another meeting or we're just going to talk away on Teams. But just by taking that sort of 5 to 10 minutes, we've just spent enough time for the group to come together and feel like they've got a common purpose and know what they're each bringing to this particular piece and how it's going to come together, right? That 5-10 minutes, quite essential. By the third piece, we were kind of like, hey, how's it all going? Because we were the same group. But I certainly invite you to consider that when you begin, even in this example, a particularly small piece of work. Okay, let's go into the second to last section, because we've got a summary coming up. So what is your top priority? And are you working on your top priorities? Now, you may be thinking, Peter, why did I give up my lunch break to come and listen to you? I could have had a coffee, a scone, gone out for a gossip, and now you're telling me on a slide that I should be focusing on my top priorities. Well, that's a bit of a given. But if you were to have your next session with your project team in a very unjudgmental, gentle, inviting way, like a good Scrum Master would do, ask people in your team, what are they focusing on? Would you start hearing stories about shoulder taps, emails, last request coming in is the next one I do? So what are you seeing and hearing in your meetings? Are you hearing the intent or the playback of, hey, yes, we are focusing on the top priorities that we're working on? So what I'd invite you in this space to do is very clearly make all the work that's coming in visible. The second part, who's your decision maker in your particular team? I'll use the word team because I can't say working group without feeling bad about it. And do you need any support to manage any of those distractions? Okay. So for example, you might have someone who's shoulder tapping someone in your team, but they've worked with them for 20 years. So they feel really bad about saying, no, you can't do that. Or they may in fact be asking that person for a favor, in which case they're actually getting quite a lot done. I'll give you an example of this. Many years ago, I worked in a large organization at a program of work, and this was one of the core reasons why that project and that program was really struggling, was those number of distractions. The next sort of technique I'm going to talk to, and I'm not sure how many people have heard this. This doesn't seem to come up a lot, but I quite like this. This is Three Amigos, not the movie out of the 80s, so that's very good. This is where, and I suppose traditionally, your BA, your QA, your BA, QA, developer. Oh, that's embarrassing. I used to be one. Developer will come together right from the inception of a piece of work, the requirements, the story writing, all the way through to that work being complete and in the hands of a customer. And by the way, the customer is the person paying for it out of their own wallet. Anyone else is a stakeholder. Say that in a meeting, and boy, you're going to get a response. And the idea behind the Three Amigos approach is primarily to avoid that handover delay and that knowledge decay. Like, it's got a ring to it, handover delay, knowledge decay. That's what you're looking to avoid by this, because you're all working on that together. Now, going back to that program of work, that program of work was really actually a series of mini projects, which needed about 2 to 4 people to complete. And despite there being a very good product owner stepping in to work with us, the wonderful Sue, that program was just months behind and really, really over budget. And what we found is that people would work on something, they'd put it in the queue, like the BA write the requirements, put it in the queue. 2 weeks later, the developer picks it up and goes, oh yeah, I can code this. They code away. The QA then gets it about a month later, looks at it and goes, oh my God, the requirements don't match the code and the code doesn't match what's on screen. How am I meant to test that? That's what we're looking to avoid with this approach. And we brought this technique in and we started working on this. And I'll fast forward to 2 years later, and in October 2013, we completed the calendar year 2013 program of work. So we started on the 2014 program of work, but with the 2013 budget. Fast forward to 2014, the director of this business unit, she came back from leave at the end of January, and the wonderful Sue, our product owner, turned around to her and said, by the way, we've actually completed all of the critical pieces of work we need for 2014, and it's not even the end of January. We've still got 11 months left to work on what's important and all the other particular pieces of work. I'll go now to a graph. The team I worked with, let's just say between October 2021 and 2022, that's a nice prompt. I don't have to remember the dates for this. And we're looking at the average completion time that this team did. I went to work with this team, and when we first started working with them, we found it was averaging about 70 days to complete an item of work. So if you want something in July, you better ask about now. And we brought in with this team those 4 policies or techniques I've just talked to. We made all the work visible. We made sure the product owner was the one and the only one who prioritized that work. We offered support for those being distracted, and we worked in the Three Amigos approach. When we picked up a piece of work, the QA, the BA, developer came together, worked on something from the start to the finish. And what we found that within the first 6 weeks of making that change, we saved 30 days on average. So not quite half, but not too far off, just by bringing in those 4 policies when we into this particular team. This is also a very good graph, by the way, to talk to. I was working as an agile coach. I had a senior manager ring me and he goes, Peter, what do you do? I don't understand. You don't code, you don't analyze, you don't test, you don't tell people what to do, you don't assign them work, you don't give them tasks, and yet this team is now going 7 times faster. And I talked through the various steps and stages we've gone through by looking at their workflow, and that magic word again, their system. Okay, let's move on to the next one, the time theft of incidents. So it's Tuesday morning, right? You're a project manager, you've got your big demo coming up on Thursday, you're excited, it's all ready to go. And on Tuesday afternoon, something goes splat in production and the team is still working on it on Wednesday afternoon, and you're starting to feel very nervous because you're suddenly, your demo's in danger. This was happening with the team I worked with a few years ago. Ironically, they were picking up a lot of work because previous projects had left behind poor quality work and technical debt. And when they picked this work up, they did particularly robust solutions. So they didn't just put a Band-Aid on a Band-Aid. But as a result, they were missing their Scrum goals, their deadlines, and this team had not a great reputation, despite being an absolutely amazing team and working very well. So I sat down, did some work with them. We came up with a plan. So the first thing we did is we made sure that every time we did planning, we went and spoke to other teams, the ones who were dependent on us, and said, hey, this can happen. We can't predict. We do need to fix them. We do need to do it in a robust way. The second part that we did is we said, right, as soon as these events happen, these incidents, we'll let other teams know so we can replan if it drags on a bit longer than planned. And the third part we essentially did was we made sure we used the term we're fixing things for paying customers, because we've already been paying customers, haven't we? We've all paid for something and had bad service. And the minute we brought that narrative in, it's like, well, do you want us to build the new thing or fix the stuff people are paying for that they can't use? And of course, people would say fix these things. So you couldn't stop these incidents happening. They did eventually come down because we did quality work. But by making it clear up front what was happening, we sort of moved away from that perception and those surprises. Let's move to a simple capacity plan. Capacity is basically how many people we've got in our team who can do things. We get people asking us for work. It's economics, demand and supply. And you roughly want to be close to committing to what you believe you can achieve. Got a team of 9 people. I looked at the timesheet data. This is based on a real world example. I looked at their timesheet data and I found that 5 out of 9 were doing business as usual. Incidents, maintenance, support. Now that's horrifying to think about, that over half your team is just keeping the lights on. That's another conversation another time. I also looked at their timesheets, and about half the team, 2 of the team, any one time are on leave. They're either sick or they're on annual leave. And that left 2 people out of 9 to do features, Slack improvements, and technical debt. You might be thinking, Peter, what's this word Slack? Now, if I'm working with a team which has a high level of incidents or a high level of unpredictable work, I always build Slack in. So working with this team, we only ever committed ourselves to 80% of our capacity, and that last 20% was to deal with the unknowns, which always happened. So you could possibly argue they're a bit more known than I've led on. And if we factor that in, which we kind of have to, because that's impacting us, and if we're at 100%, right, things are just going to queue up, and incidents can't really afford to queue, we're suddenly down to this. And this was a position I was in almost not so long ago, where I went, oh my goodness, we've got half a person left to do all this work, and it's really busy. And the topic, that's part of what I'll be talking to at Taupo, how those conversations go. Okay, let's jump into what has to be one of the easiest, quickest ways of learning a technique is value stream mapping. And this is where we have in our x-axis, we have time, we have value and waste down the other side. And what we're looking to do is identify times that we're adding value and when we're incurring waste. Someone's come to us, say, hey, write some code. We do some analysis for a day, goes into a queue. Our UX person comes along, does a day of work, goes back into our queue. Our developers pick it up and they spend a week coding away, and so on. QA pick it up, they do some coding, they do their testing, then they do a release, and we have finished it at that point. So we've had 10 days of adding value, we've had 28 days in total, so our value ratio was 36%. Now, some people might look at this and go, wow, that's actually not too bad compared to other things. I have seen as low as 3%, 6 days of value out of 200, massive queues, right? Very slow movement, very inefficient. Okay? How far above or below the line doesn't matter, but you can literally write this on a whiteboard with a marker and explain this to your sponsors, your stakeholders, your steering committee, and say, this is what's happening within my project or within my system, if you like. And if you're going to look at trying to improve it, I would say focus on the waste, because that 10% improvement will give you 3 days versus the value will give you 1 day. Last topic, dependency management. And a lot of the thinking I have in this space and we'll be talking to in this brief section comes from Ken Rubin, who is an agile coach based in the US. He's got a definition there for dependencies. Again, this can be something that can be very underestimated. People think, hey, just go ask that team to do something. I'm sure they will. You go chat to that team. They say, yep, we've got 10 pieces on, you're number 6, and we've only got capacity for 3. Okay. So what I invite you to do is model those dependencies out. Map them as we've got there so you can visualize and quantify. So if I'm in warehousing, how many dependencies do I have? Do I have 2? Do I have 4? Am I aware that SAP have to go ask database with half the requests I send to them? And what's a technique I can take this further and show that I'm trying to manage this? Well, I'd say you could create some working agreements, like the example I've got here in front of me on screen and I've used in the past. So just talking through that first line there, the request is transport, the service is UX, the frequency is high, so go to them often, cost of delay, put money on the board, people pay attention's high, and this will happen often. We'll get delayed. They're going to try and work with us and complete things within 3 days. So this is you beginning, and this might be teams outside of your immediate project boundary, outside of your scope, but you're beginning to understand this, you're beginning to see this, And because you've started to look at the system around you, you can start putting this kind of information in front of people to say, hey, this is what's happening. Okay, let's reflect. Let's wrap this up in a couple of minutes. What we've gone through today, projects, people, and products. And as I've stated, looking at seeing how these elements coming together start to form a system. And by beginning to understand that system, we can understand what decisions we need to make to be successful at what we need to do. We then looked at teams, the 4 different types of working groups, and how even on a relatively small piece of work, we could bring people together. And that section on actions, I've really focused on what I think are really simple and easy tools or techniques to pick up. There's things like causal loop diagrams used to map and define systems. I'd love to speak to it. It would take me half a day and would have to do it in a small group with lots of practice. So not really appropriate for a session like this. And I'll bring you now to my last slide on call to action. So in your current project, you're wondering, have we spent enough time, or in fact, are we spending too much time coming together as a team? Am I making the right decisions? Do I understand the domain I'm in? Maybe this is why we're behind and having so many issues. Are we actually making good decisions? For your next project, I invite you to consider products and people as part of the thinking before you start. And if you're on a struggling project, which is a nice way of saying you're on a project that's going to fail, a couple of techniques that we've just touched on, the value stream mapping and dependencies. Can I put these together? Can I show these to my sponsors, stakeholders, or steering committee? Can I say, hey, this is what's happening. This is impacting what we're doing. It's impacting others. We need to have a bit of a discussion, a bit of a think, and a bit of an understanding of the system we are in. Thank you so much. I'll stop sharing there now, Julie, and come back to you all. Take a breath.
Yeah. Hi. Thank you. Thank you for that, Peter. That's very insightful talk. Thank you so much. Remember, the plan is intent. Delivery happens in the work. Make work visible, manage flow, and remove blockers early so there are fewer surprises later. Thank you. Thank you for that, Peter. And we'll just like to welcome Mr. Lee Lambert. Lee Lambert actually joined you as well today. So he is the father of our project management. He is the founder of PMT himself. So he's here listening as well to us.
Excellent.
Yeah, he said he wants to hear from you, Peter. So we'd like to open our Q&A. We did not receive any messages earlier. So anyone who would like to ask any questions from Peter? You can also open your mic if you would like to.
Oh,
Why not?
How do you see the? Oh, sorry. Can I read it? I've got an adrenaline rush. Anyone who knows I've been public speaking will know. As soon as I stop, the brain hasn't caught up with the mouth. That takes about 5 minutes, but I'll read it out. How do you see the impact on AI in your domain? I'm actually using AI quite extensively. The current project I'm on at the moment is just the 4 of us, myself, a QA, and devs. We're using things like Claude Code, LM Notebook, Gemini, Copilot. It is fantastic. And what I like about AI, okay, is it's bringing back a word I don't hear enough of, but I did when I first started as a developer, because not long afterwards, Google came along and everyone Googled code because they thought that could just do it for them. And it's bringing back the words of software craftsmanship, right? You need to apply critical thinking. You need to know what good looks like. You need to understand what good code, robust, secure, reliable, testable, okay? All those terms, you will not learn that off AI, okay? You will only learn it, as I did, off a great mentor, because back when I started coding, there was no internet. So I find it great. Like this morning, I went and did some analysis across 6 different major media companies. If I'd done it by hand, it would take me all day. By saying, Gemini, go do this, it took me 15 minutes. So AI is a tool. If you don't understand how to use a tool, you will still cut yourself and make terrible work. Okay, it's a bit like someone who can chisel something out in a day or tell a laser cutter to do it in half an hour. You still need to understand design. You still need to understand what looks good and how to get there.
Yeah, thanks. That's awesome.
Okay, we have another one, I think, from Jim. Would not AI lead to job losses? This field of project management, how can we adapt fast enough to avoid that?
Yeah, it's a good question, Jim. In the various years I've had across IT, there's different things that were going to come along and make people redundant or get rid of things. And I think if we look through human history, like how many blacksmiths do we have now compared to 200 years ago, or how many electricians versus candle makers. It's another technology. It's something we can harness, but it can't learn by itself. It needs source material. It still needs critical thinking. So my opinion in this space is if you're good at what you do and if you can think critically and you can understand, you'll always have work. And a bit like the developers I'm working with, Claude Code is doing all the donkey work, go connect to this database, go do this, blah, blah, blah. And what we're now thinking about is the user, right? The customer. What will this look like? How will it function? Is it the best possible UX we could put up in front of them? How are they going to use it? We're deploying all those critical elements. We're not spending half a day on coding a connection to a database. We're talking about how the users are going to interact with our environment, our application, and that's where the value is. So again, if you're thinking along those lines, that's what's going to happen. And again, you could ask, I haven't done it myself, but maybe have a go. Hey, Gemini, here's some deadlines. Go write me a Gantt chart. And if it doesn't, will it do a good job? Will it understand what you actually need?
Great. Thank you so much for that, Peter. Anyone else who would like to ask questions, please? It seems they digested most of your... We learned a lot, to be honest, even for me. 1 second.
Yeah, here is a question.
There's another one. Yeah.
So
from Clarissa. So what's your tip or advice for how other teams or stakeholders in big organizations stick to the systems, processes implemented, and even when we have worked with them from the very start up to the rollout?
I'd say the critical part to start with is, why would you look to change? What's the problem you're trying to solve or the opportunity you're trying to realize? So if you've got a process or something that works, or you believe that works, if there's enough evidence to say it works, then there might not be a need to change it. But if you're, as I said, if you're starting to see unexpected things, surprises, not understanding what's happening, why things are taking longer, you're getting more, anything you're not expecting, that's when you start looking and saying, okay. And I only really touched on the Canadian framework. There's a whole way around where you probe and you analyze. There's a big section around the luminal between complex and complicated. Listening to Dave Snowden talk about trying to listen to Einstein explain physics 101. He's very smart and clever. He's got a great analogy actually in the self-paced training about children's birthday parties versus the model or the framework, and it's very, very clever. But I would say go and look for that evidence. Go be aware. Spend half your awareness on what you're hearing and seeing, and the other half on what you're not hearing and seeing and what that means.
Great. Thanks for that, Peter. Another one from MJ.
Oh.
1 second. MJ. So Mark Jacob. So for someone who is new on this field, what project management software do you recommend must I master first?
Oh, depends what you... I was going to say Jira, but that's a cheeky answer, isn't it? Because that's the answer everyone gives. Jira. Because you never mastered Jira. It always bites you. What software do you recommend I master first? That's, to be honest, I would say a virtual whiteboard where you can scribble, scratch, and think. I would also invite you, I don't know if I say double diamond approach to problem solving. I'd say go and understand that and find a tool which allows you to do that in the virtual world, because that will be hugely beneficial to understand to yourselves. Because you'll need those problem solving skills the minute you move out of that clear domain. Those 3 M words, and 2 M words in the list are great tools. The only one I don't like is Microsoft Whiteboard, because I have horrible memories of it from a large organization years ago. But anything that allows you to effectively collaborate. I'm a mural fan. I also quite like Mentimeter. which is also a very, very good tool if you want to do things anonymously. I had a retro once, which was very tense because there was all kinds of allegations of bullying and stuff going on. We cleared the air, but by having an anonymous tool, you couldn't say, "Oh, that's Bob writing that sticky note attacking me. I'm going to have a go at him." Like, it was just wonderful to use. Yeah, helps you structure your thinking as well too. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that, Peter. Anyone else? That's my purpose. Okay. Anyone else?
Going once, going to where we're doing the good Scrum Master thing and honoring our time box and finishing on time. And I didn't speed up because I was watching the clock. I sped up because the caffeine I had at 11 o'clock hit the system. So, which again, there's several people on this call who work with me and know what I'm like after 3 or 4 coffees in a Red Bull. Yeah.
Indeed.
And yeah, thank you, Lavinia. Yeah, and I sleep like the dead too, just in case you ask. Yeah.
Okay, I think we don't have any much question and almost time. So thank you so much, Peter, for
You're
your
welcome.
time. Thank you for sharing your time and your expertise with us. We truly appreciate it. And to everyone who joined, thank you so much for your time and for being part of our February webinar. So if any one of you would like to, support us, like if you want to go further to any certification pathway, just send us a message or email us. And yeah, thank you and see you again for next webinar. Nga mihi nui and have a great day and evening, everyone. To those who joined Actually Global. Thanks, Peter. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Julie. Thanks, fans.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah,
Bye.
have a good one.
You
Bye.
too. Bye-bye.